So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session. Thank you for booking on and giving up your precious time. So my name is Nikki Kimball. I'm part of the education team here at Just2easy, and my job is an educational consultant. And you are here for using Just2easy to support students with SEND or additional special needs if you are joining us from Scotland. So a bit of my background, just to give you some context. I spent the best part of a decade working in a school that supported students with autistic spectrum conditions and all the additional needs that went with that. So I was the ICT lead at that school. I then supported a number of schools in my local authority, including all of the special schools, with their provision for ICT. And I've since worked for Just2easy for the last 5 years. So hopefully I'm well placed to offer some advice in terms of how we can use the accessibility settings that are built within Just2easy to support those students with SEND. So this training is always difficult to plan because there are so many of you from so many different types of schools. So we have really tried to encompass all areas. So I have thought about both mainstream and special provision. So hopefully you'll take at least one or two things away from this session this afternoon. Bit of session housekeeping as always. It is a 60-minute session, so we are looking to finish at 4:30. You, of course, are welcome to leave at any time. Questions can be asked via the chat function. I have got the Teams open on my second screen, so if you have any questions as we go along, please just feel free to type them into the chat. I will try and keep on top of that and try and keep my eye and check that there's any questions that come up. I will be doing a Q&A session at the end of the training as well. So if you have any questions that you want to ask me, you'll be given that space to do so. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube probably later on tonight. So that will be available for on-demand viewing. Now, today's session, very busy one as always. So we're looking at using Just2easy to support students with SEND or ASN. So we're going to look at how we can use QR codes for easy access. So we have QR code logins. So I'm going to show you how you can generate and use those to get your students logged in without using a username and password, which is always a bit of a bonus. We're going to look at streamlining the launchpad and also adding your own custom tiles to the launchpad to offer easy access to websites or files for your students without them having to add anything into the search bar or that kind of thing. I'm going to show you how to capture evidence using the camera, video and sound tools. And I'm going to give you some activity suggestions using JitWrite, J2Create, which is the new name for J2E5. If those of you that have joined us are sort of proficient in Just2easy, you may have noticed this has changed its name. Same great tool, just a different name. So using J2Create, we're going to have a look at setting default font and page color. Adding sounds to pictures, so interactive timetables, interactive timetables, social stories, using text to speech, speech to text and word lists. I've also added this in this afternoon, so using J2 stars for monitoring behaviour, and part of that is going to be adding in your own skills and your own definitions of behaviours you want to reward. And lastly, we're going to look at J2 PDFs and making your existing worksheets interactive and inclusive, hopefully for your SEND pupils. And then I'm going to showcase some resources we have available in the library ready for you to use. So these are pre-made content ready for you to share with your students. So let's get started. So accessing Just2easy, we are accessible via any device, anywhere. You can access us through j2e.com. And this will be the sign-in page. Now, it's quite difficult when we're sort of talking to so many people from so many different areas. However, I know the majority of you are from Northern Ireland, so we are available within My School. So you can click on the View All button and we are under the Online Learning tab. Alternatively, you can go to j2e.com and use the EA button. So that's for my Northern Irish colleagues out there. So it's either or, preferably the My School version. Now, for those of you that are joining us from Wales, you will click on the Hub button, or we are available within the Hub managed service. For those of you that are joining us from Scotland, this has actually changed. I should have updated my my presentation. There will be a glow button. So RM Unify has been changed for Glow. So you can click that and use your Glow credentials to log in. Now that is for certain areas at the moment. So Aberdeenshire, Perth and Kinross, Stirling, and there's one other which I can't remember off the top of my head. So you are all provisioned for Glow access. If you're not part of those areas, just email us at support@j2e.com and we can get you set up with a free trial. So all of our Scottish schools have a completely free trial until July 2025. And then we've also got our Londoners, so you can use the LGFL login, and our Birmingham schools can use the launch button. So there's lots and lots of different managed services using us. So hopefully I've informed you on how you can log in. If you are unsure, just drop me an email at support@j2e.com and I will be able to. Oh, all the chats just suddenly loaded. So thank you to those of you that were engaging with the chat. Sorry I didn't call out for you. Right, moving on. So J2 dashboard, we're going to look at generating login QR codes. So these can make it a lot easier for your students to get logged in without losing teaching hours trying to get them logged into Just2easy. So we offer something called QR code logins. Now these are generated through dashboard. I'm going to go through this very quickly, but rest assured there is a reference video on our YouTube channel. It's one of our tips and tricks on how to generate these QR codes. So if you do forget, you can refer back to that. So when you log in, this is our launchpad, sometimes called J2 Launch, sometimes called the Launch. This is just our home site where all of our tiles link off of. So J2 Dashboard is our admin only tool. So only teachers will see this and all teachers will be able to do this. So you go to Dashboard, and then we're going to go to this classes tab here. And there we've got all of our classes listed. And now the majority of you, I presume, are going to be from a managed service. So by that I mean C2K, Glow, Hub. So all of this will be preset for you because it's pulled from your SIM system. It's all pre-populated. All the users should be in the correct classes. So to generate a QR code, I'm just going to zoom in so you can see. Got this lovely QR code button here. So we're going to click on that. And that's going to then take you to a tab to prompt you which class you need to choose. So you would then choose your class out of a list. So for example, class 1. Now we do have an alternative class code. So this is to showcase on the board for the school, for the students to be able to scan, choose their name out of a list, and that can log them in. So that's one option, but this really was the one that I was going to show you, this generate login codes. So if I click that, that has now generated a QR code per child in your class. Okay, so you would print these out, laminate them if you wish, although I will say that if you do laminate them in shiny laminate, it does tend to interact with the camera, so that can sometimes be a little less effective. So if you are going to laminate them, maybe invest in some of the matte laminates. I'm speaking from experience, guys. I spent hours laminating them for them to be just a bit faffy. So you would cut these up and each child would have their own. So they've got their name on there. Keep them in their books, keep them in their drawers and their bags. You can send them home if they're doing homework at home. And they would just open up the camera app on their device, either their phone or their iPad or their Chromebook. Open up the camera, scan this, click on the button, and that is going to log them straight in. So no need for a username, no need for a password. So that can be really helpful just to get them straight in and started on their learning without faffing around. So that is how we can create QR code logins. And as I said, there is a reference video on our YouTube channel should you need it. Now, the other thing that we can do is that we can personalize the launchpad for our classes. Okay, so we can switch off certain tiles. Now, certainly my students, when I was in school, would have been overwhelmed by the choice and may have been unable to get started, or just find this in a sensory context far too much colour, far too much brightness, far too much choice. So we can get rid of some of these buttons for our students, and again we're going to do that through dashboard. So dashboard really is the area that you're going to go to fine-tune and tailor your site. And to remove those buttons, we're going to go, instead of the classes tab, we're going to go to the J2 launch tab here. And these are all of our tools. Now, for example, Bloggy and Webby. Now, these are legacy tools anyway, so they're not used as much as they were. But they're also quite high-level tools. Bloggy in particular is a high-level tool. So you can see here, I've clicked this. I'm just going to switch them on because I've already switched them off. Every class in school has access to this. So I might want to switch that off by deselecting some of my younger classes, for example. So that now means class 1, 2, 3 no longer have access to that Bloggy tile. Equally, it might be that J2 stars. There's a pupil behaviour system. You might not want to use that in school. So we can just switch that off on a whole school level as well by ticking that box, or unticking that box, should I say. It may be that J2 office, again, might be a bit too much for your younger ones, so we can switch that off. So what I'll do, and I normally do this beforehand, I'm not sure why I haven't done it today. I'm just going to log in as one of my pupils just to show you. So this is Lottie. And you can see there that her launchpad is much less cluttered than mine. You can see that Bloggy is no longer there, Office is no longer there, and there's a few others that I've taken off as well. So you could even, if you wanted to, just streamline it to 1 or 2 tools. So it could be JIT, J2 Blast, they're the only tools you want to use in that particular class. So you can take all of them away should you need to. So hopefully that will help in terms of personalising for our students. This has to be done by class basis. However, what I will say is you can set up teaching classes. So these are the green classes, are what we call registration classes. So that data is pulled from your SIM system if you're in a managed service. When you're in a managed service, you can, well, when you're in any service, you can set up a teaching class. So these are smaller groups of students. That's done through dashboard, through the classes area, so you can click the plus button. I'm not going to show you how to do that today, but there is a video on YouTube. So just search for teaching classes in Just2easy and that will come up. And that's really useful. You can set up your own SEND groups, intervention groups. That can be really helpful for setting work and things like this where you need to switch things off for specific students. Okay, then we're going to talk about adding custom tiles to the launchpad. So this is great for personalising their learning, making things all very central and easily accessible for your students. So we can create our own tiles and we can even share these with selected students. So my launchpad is here and this is an example of a tile that I have created. So this is a link to our J2E or Just2easy YouTube channel. And so I can click on that and that's going to take me straight to our YouTube channel. So a bit of a shameless plug there, Just2easy TV. So how have I done this? So I have got a website that I want my students to access. So this is the Makaton YouTube channel. So this is their sign of the week, which is autumn. So I might want to have this on my students' launchpads for them to refer to. Okay. So all I need to do is just grab this URL, so this web address at the top, and I'm just going to copy that. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy that and I'm going to go back to my launchpad. Now you've got this button, this plus button at the top of the screen. So I'm going to click that and that's going to ask me to create a tile here. So I'm going to have sign of the week. And I'm going to paste that URL into that box there. So I'm going to right click and paste and I'm going to spell of correctly. There we go. Now it may well, depending on which website it is, it may pull a thumbnail. So obviously because it's YouTube, it's pulled the YouTube logo. If you were using BBC Bite Size, that would pull a little bite size logo. Wikipedia page would pull a wiki, that kind of thing. And you can change things like the tile colour if you wanted to. So if you wanted to make a certain subject or one colour, you can do that. And then all we do is we press plus. And that has added that as a tile onto my launchpad. Now, what I will say, anything that you create as a teacher in Just2easy, if you want your students to be able to access it, you need to share it with them. So that goes with files, that goes with library resources, goes with tiles. And to do that, we're going to hover over the tile, and we've got these two grey people here. In fact, I'm going to zoom in just so you can see those two wee grey people. There we go. I'm going to click on that, and that brings up my share box now. So I can use this drop-down menu, and that's given me options. So I could share with my whole class if I wanted to. I could share with my teaching classes. So you can see there I've got things like digital leaders, literacy groups, nursery group, spelling groups. Or I can share with individual users. So I'm going to share this with Lottie because I think she's the only student in my class maybe that is using Makaton signs. I can add for multiple groups. So it could be that I add for Lottie and maybe my literacy group 4, for example. So maybe they're working at that level of communication. So both of those will be able to access that tile. So if I just go back to Lottie, and if I refresh Lottie's page, there is that sign of the week. She can click on that, and that is going to take her directly to that YouTube video, and she can play that and see the sign of the week. Okay, so that could be, as I said, a YouTube video, could be a game that you want them to play, could be a common website that you use externally to Just2easy. So there's lots of uses for that. So hopefully that is helpful. Right. Okay, we're going to talk about capturing evidence now. Certainly when you're working with children with SEND or ASN, if you're from Scotland, sometimes it is very difficult to capture evidence because they may find writing difficult or impossible, or they may be reluctant readers and writers, for example. So we have 3 tools called our evidence tools. So those are microphone, video, and photo. Now they all work in a very similar way. They have a very, very simple interface with just one button. So great for those students with those special educational needs that maybe get overwhelmed or maybe get distracted. They have only one button that they can press. Now I'm going to use the microphone simply because the video and photo won't work whilst I'm streaming through Teams, but rest assured they work in the same way. And I've given some examples of use. So capturing evidence using methods that don't require writing. These are really great for those sorts of students that maybe they've got the knowledge and understanding, but writing really isn't their forte. And I thought this is a great example. I can't claim it as my own. This was Mary, the other educational consultant. We were talking about this session earlier, and she said, wouldn't it be great if we recorded some self-reflection or some self-assessment in sort of ways such as video or audio for 2 stars and a wish. So every Friday at the end of that week, they went away with their support assistant and they reflected on their learning that week and how they could maybe improve next week. So you've captured that evidence. It's not written down, but you've still captured that evidence. So let's have a look. Let's use that as an example for this. So I'm going to click on my microphone. And there you can see what I mean about a very simple interface. It's just got that one button. So the students can do this within their account, or you could do this as a teacher logged into your account, and then we can save it to a student's account. So I'm going to record some audio. Obviously, if it was a camera, they would click the camera button. If it was a video, they click the record button. So there's just one button for them to press. So we're going to click, it's going to count down. This week, I've been learning about Roald Dahl. My 2 stars and a wish are, and there we go. And they would obviously carry on with that thought process. So at the moment, it's default saving to my account. Now, of course, you can just save it to your account if you want to. But if we use these 2 arrows, that will then open up for the whole school. So I can search for the child that was involved in that particular project. Now it could be that it's multiple children, so you can tag multiple children. So I'm going to look for Harry this time, and I can click on Harry, and when you're done you click OK, and that has added those into the list. Now you can have a copy in your file, or if we just click that cross, that's going to take you out that list and just save to those pupil files as evidence. Then I can rename that file. So I'm going to just have 2 stars and a wish, week beginning 30th September, for example. I can play that back to listen to it. This week I've been learning about roll file. There we go. And when I'm happy, I just click save. And that is going to save into those students' folders. I can start a new recording. So if I click OK, that's then going to offer me another option to record, and I don't have to load those students again. So maybe if you're taking that small group of students out to capture that evidence, you can capture multiple pieces of evidence without having to do that process again. So we can record another bit, have a conversation, record another bit, and then you've just got to rename the file and save it. So just to show you where that's gone, because I've saved it into the pupils file, it's gone into their file. So we access that through the pupil files area, which there's a button off your launchpad just here. And you can also go from your My Files. So if you are completely brand new to Just2easy, anything you save as a teacher saves into your My Files area, or anything you save as a user, sorry, saves into your My Files area. So this is all of my saved content as a teacher. You can see there's my training presentation. I've done a video of sign of the week. I've done an animation this morning. So these are all my pieces of work. Now, as a teacher, you can also access the pupil file, so they don't have to share anything back. As soon as they've saved it, you as a teacher can access that content, so that's really important. There's no process where they have to then click on something and share it with their teacher for them to be able to see, because sometimes that can be a step too far for some of our children, depending on what level they're working at. So I'm going to go into class 1. I'm going to see Lottie's got her own folder here, so we can click that, and there is that audio piece of work. So I can play that, so I can listen to it. This week I've been learning about roll. And there we go. And that will obviously be in Harry's folder as well. Now, to take that a step further, we also offer the option to be able to QR code to that piece of work. So obviously this audio, part of the difficulty of capturing evidence is sometimes there is that requirement to have things in books or to be evidenced somewhere that is not a digital portfolio. Obviously we can't print an audio at all. What we can do, if we go to this little green circle, and this is on any piece of work, whether that's in a pupil file or your file, we've got this option to QR code as well. So if I click that, now as a teacher, that will allow me to have view only. And I can click this publish button as well. So that means that whoever is accessing that file does not need to log in. So what I can do now, if I open up my camera app on my phone, I'm just going to scan this. She says, scan this. Let's try again. There we go. Okay. So that has opened up as an audio file, so I can play that. So there we go. So it could be that I then put that into their evidence book. It could be a speech and language book, could be a literacy book, could be maths, whatever it is. So you can print that off and stick that in their book as evidence. So that would work for videos, animations, anything with sound in it, any sort of file that we create in Just2easy. So hopefully that is helpful. So that is capturing evidence using our evidencing tools. Now we're going to look at some of the pupil content creation tools now. So we're going to look at JitWrite very quickly, then we're going to move on to J2 Create. So JitWrite is part of our infant toolkit. So there are 8 tools within JIT. These are geared towards the younger end of the primary sector, but will certainly still be appropriate for even some of the older students in the SEND schools, for example. I had a discussion with a Scottish ASN school actually last week who was working with between 12 and 16-year-olds who thought that JIT was absolutely fantastic for those students because it wasn't overly babyish, but was still a very simple interface for them to be able to navigate independently. Just falling off my stool. So JitWrite is the first one that it opens up into. We have 7 other tools. So Paint, Turtle, Chart, Pictogram, Animate, Branch, and Mix. Now Mix is a nice one. It's an ebook creator, so that's well worth a look. We're not going to look at it today, but well worth a look if you get a chance. And they have inbuilt accessibility settings. So let's have a look. I'm going to load in a background. So there's lots of backgrounds to choose from. You can also load in pictures from your My Files. So there's a nice iceberg. And we can also search for images. So for example, maybe you're doing global warming, so you could look for an iceberg. And that passes through a safe search, a child safe search. So you're not going to get any nasty surprises come up, and then they can write over the top. So nice for that cross-curricular link. Iceberg lettuce, anyone? But I'm going to use one of the templates. So I'm going to stick with the beach, and you can see it's very simple, but still quite effective. So I'm going to write, we went to the, okay. So I've written my text. I can change the font size. I don't have to highlight anything first. I can just click on it and it's going to change. So that's really helpful, because actually that click, drag and highlight is quite a high level skill. They can change the color of their text as well. All easy peasy so far. We've got our text to speech in the right hand corner. So we can click on that and they can listen back to their work. So that moves the focus away from that support assistant and makes that student a little bit more independent, because they can listen to their work without someone having to read it or support them to read it. So already quite a big step. Then by default, the word lists are closed, but the students can open that just by clicking on that word. Now, depending on which word, which template they've loaded as a background will determine which word list shows. But so because we have a beach background, we've got a beach word list. So they can hover over any of these words and use that text to speech to listen. I don't know why there's such a delay, but there is. And then when if they want to add that into their document, they click, and that is going to type that into their document for them. So they have it there as support, so they could copy it, or they can just click on that word and it will add it in. Now, the only difference with a touchscreen device, so if you are using iPads and some Chromebooks as a pupil device, that works just ever so slightly differently, in that they have to touch the word once to listen to it and then double click to add it into the document, because obviously you don't have the hover function that we would do with a mouse. There are other word lists available. Okay, so I can press that arrow. We've got things like top word list, that's your high frequency words, and there's lots of word lists there. Now we can add word lists into J2 Create. So if you've done that, they will show in JIT Write as well. So you can see there, I've got things like sentence starters, should have, there we go, sentence starters. So it doesn't just have to be singular words, it can be phrases. So we can listen to this. As a result of, I mean, I've misspelled that, but you get the idea. So we can create our own word lists. And then finally, we've also got speech to text. So this is fantastic for those students that really are cognitively very able. Maybe they're able to dictate what their knowledge and understanding, but maybe they really struggle to get it written down, or they just haven't got the confidence to start writing. So they can use the speech to text in the left-hand corner. They have to dictate a sentence at a time, but they just press this big microphone button. It was a hot, sunny day. And then they hit stop when they've finished, and it will write that for them, and they can click add text, and there we go. And we can use our text to speech and listen back to it again. It was a hot sunny day. And there we go. Now, the other thing that they can do for capturing evidence is they've got the record audio function at the top. So that's really nice. Maybe they want to talk about what they've learned. Maybe want to reflect on their learning, what was involved in that activity. Maybe they've done a picture and they want to tell a story. So they can do that in JIT Paint. So we can hit record here and then just hit that record button. We went to the beach. It was a hot, sunny day. And then they can listen back to them speaking as well. We went to the beach. It was a hot, sunny day. I don't quite know why I went so high with the hot, but there we go. Now, a little story that I had was I had a student who was a selective mute, would not speak to anybody in class for years, but put an iPad in front of him and he was chat, 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 chat. So that was our way of capturing evidence, was to utilise technology and recording functions. So that worked really well. So if you are working with individuals like that, who maybe are a little bit lacking in confidence, give them a nice quiet space, maybe on their own, and see what they can create. And then to save, we're going to click on this lovely floppy disk button here. They get that saving circle, so they know something's happening, and that will grey out. So once it's saved, it disappears. So they can only save one copy of that unless they make any further changes. And you're not going to get 25 copies of the same file, which I often got because they just keep clicking the file, save, save, save. And that's going to save into the user's My Files area. So if a pupil's created this, it'll be in the pupil files. If you've created it, it will be in your My Files area. So that is JIT right. Right, we're going to look at J2 Create now, and this has a lot of functions. Now I could, and I am, delivering a session just on J2 Create, and we'd probably be here for an hour, so I'm going to try and get through this fairly quickly. But it's a very robust tool, and it's a nice step up from JIT right. So you can see here we've got a background that we've added in some planets and then some boxes, and the students have got a word list along the bottom that they can use. We've got speech to text built into it and the fonts, and then we've also got text to speech. So they've got all the accessibility settings they had in JIT right that they might rely on that are still available in J2 Create. So let's have a look. So J2 Create is here. Okay. Now, one of the first things I'm going to show you is absolutely brand new. We only introduced it late last week as a result of a discussion that I had with a teacher that was working in the special needs school. Now, she had some students with dyslexia, and she thought it was really important for them to be able to have a coloured background, which you can do in Just2easy and J2 Create. It's very easy to do it. You go down here, you've got your page settings, and if I right click here, we've got various different page colours. So we can set that. But the brand new feature is in the bottom left here, we've got this little cog. So this means each user can now select a font and a paper colour for J2 Create to automatically open up into. So if I use this little drop down menu, there is a font called Lexend. Now this is designed specifically for individuals with dyslexia. Something about the weighting of the words. There are more fonts available, so you can search for various fonts, and in fact there are variations of Lexend. So you can see, for example, Lexend Zeta. There's some very big spaces between the words, so that's quite a nice one to use. And there we go, so I've highlighted that one. And then the page colour, so we can right click on that and you can choose a page colour. So for example, students with dyslexia may find it easier to read black on pale blue or black on generally pastel colours, pale pink or pale yellow. So you could just spend 2 minutes doing this with one of your students, and then it is set. So every time they open up J2 Create, that will load as a page colour. So there we go. So let's load that. So that is now, if I go to a new page, that is now that set page colour. And we've also set the text font for Lexend. So for example, let's go with Titanic as my topic. I can double click and you can see how wide that spacing is between those letters. It does have free formatting, so you don't have to click in a specific text box, which can be very irritating. I tried to use PowerPoint earlier and it drove me nuts, so I stopped very quickly. And I can see how students with SEND would become very frustrated very quickly. But we don't have that in Just2easy, so you know they can click anywhere and start typing. Now you've also got speech to text, which you have to click on the page and that will show, and it's just there. So we can click that and we can record. The Titanic was built in 1912 in Belfast. And there we go. And I can click add, and that's going to add that using that default font that we've just chosen. So that's our speech to text. That does have to be done a sentence at a time. But what we can do, we can either, if we want the whole phrase to be spoken, so we're going to use text to speech now. If I want the whole phrase to be spoken, I can double click and use that text to speech. So that is that speech bubble there. So obviously it's not perfect, it's still a bit robotic, but you get the idea. Or we can just highlight certain aspects of that sentence. And it will just say, it will just say what you've highlighted. Now we are working on the text-to-speech highlighting words as it moves through the sentence. So that is coming as an update soon, hopefully. I have requested it multiple times. So we're looking for that to come. The other thing that we've got is we've got the option to talk as you type. So we can tick that. So once we've switched that on, I'm trying to think. Left. Well, would help correctly, wouldn't it? Is it Southampton? I should know that. And she should have said Southampton, but she has. But you get the idea. So there are lots of options for the children to be able to sort of utilise this themselves. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is the word lists. So that big W there, we can create our own word list. These are the ones that I've created already. So you can see I've got things like sentence support, those sentence starters that we had earlier, high frequency words, water cycle, digestive system. So you can create your own by clicking on the new button here. You can copy and paste these from elsewhere. Sale. Very poor use of capitals here, but you get the idea. And there we go. You can have as many words as you want in that, and then I can click save. Now, because I've created that in this document, that has dropped that to the bottom, so that is ready for us to use. Now, if you want your students to have access to this, remember what I said earlier, if you want your students to have access, you have to share it. And that's done it in exactly the same way. So we hover over this word list, and it's sort of a blue circle there. So we click on that, and we go to share. And then the same as we did with our tile, we'll use that drop down menu, and I can share that with my whole class if I wanted to, or just individual users. So I can just have Lottie having access to that particular word list. So the students that need it have those that support or that structure that they can access without identifying them as being different, because quite often that can be a bit of a knock on their confidence levels. They can get embarrassed, maybe, you know, if they've got a printed word list next to them but nobody else has got a printed word list, it really can affect them quite greatly. Whereas this student, she will be the only one that has access to this particular word list. So what I can do is I can save that file. So I'm going to save Titanics. With this a couple of times. Oh dear, 2. There we go. And I can share that with my students. So I'm going to click on this little share button here. And again, I'm going to share that with my whole class. But remember, I've shared that file with the whole class, but I've only shared that word list with Lottie. So Lottie would be able to access this through the shared files area. So this is Lottie's account. She goes to shared files. She just ticks list files. There's that Titanic. So it opens up in view mode, but she can click the edit mode. There's that word list at the bottom. She can listen to any of those words. And she can click on that word. It's going to type that into that document, and she can make changes to this. So let's have a look, Titanic. And there we go. She can add some pictures on there, and some sounds and some videos if she wanted to, and then she can click save, and that's going to save her version into her My Files area, and you can access it from the Pupil Files area. So that is the basics of J2 Create. Now I'm going to be a bit more specific now, and I'm going to talk about really things that I used to use when working in a special needs school. So certainly my students were old money P4, so that's probably showing you how long it's been since I worked in a school. Long time. So my children were really, really low level. I had a lot of non-verbal children, a lot of children with additional cognitive difficulties and learning differences. So these were just examples of things that I would use in school. So things like an interactive timetable. So these are just images that I've then linked to sound. So if I click on this, assembly, it says something. Register. Break time. So that's quite easily done. So that's one example, and this is an interactive register. So a lot of my students would come in the morning, not be able to speak, and we'd use the Big Macs. I mean, that's some old school technology there, but probably still used, very useful. So the children would hit the Big Mac to say good morning, whereas they could have come up to the board, found their picture. Good morning, everyone. Clicked on it. I don't know why there's such a delay in my speech. And they could have said good morning and been engaged in that sense. So this is a J2 create file, okay? And all I've done, and I should have done this before, I don't think I've got a child's photo. So I'm just going to add one, child, from my Google. Let's add in this lovely child here. Here we go. So, oh dear, so that's copyrighted. Let's add you in. There we go. Okay, so you can take photos directly onto the page as well. So you do have that photos button. You can choose files as well. So if you've got them stored externally, you can also copy from the internet. So if you're using any sort of symbol system, you can right click, copy and paste into here. So just to give you an example, let's go widget symbol, I don't know, lunch, for example. So I just want one. There we go. So I can right click, copy that image. Probably shouldn't be showing you this. I can then right click, paste my symbol into that document. It's that easy. Obviously, you must stick to copyright. And then we can link sound to this. So sound is quite easy to add in. So we've got this sound button up here. So the multimedia tool, and we've got record sound. So I can just hit record. Good morning, everyone, and add to page. So that is the sound button option. Okay, so that's just clicking on the multimedia and going to record sound. To make a picture talk, I need to wait for it to finish uploading. There we go. I click on the image first, so we've got the blue boxes around it, and then I go to the multimedia tool and record sound. And you'll know that you've done that correctly because it now says add to selection as opposed to add to page. So I can click record. Good morning, everyone, and add to selection. So that now is linked to that particular photograph. The only problem with this one is these will only play if you're in the view mode, which actually is quite nice because it removes all these buttons, removes all the distraction around the outside. If I go to view, there we go. So you can see. So if I click on her picture, morning everyone, and wait a little bit. I think it's interacting with the teams. I think that's why there's such a delay, but normally that would be quite instantaneous. So that is our sound button. So like it's a sound trigger. And this button would play just by clicking on the play button. So that's how those two look slightly different. So that's an example of how you could use J2 Create to support students that maybe need that extra support. And then I've also got an example of social stories using J2 Create. So I'm working on these, still working on these, and I'm open to suggestions. So if you've got any suggestions, please feel free to email me or pop them in the chat and I'll see what I can do. So this is just an example of, no, it's not. Let me see if I can find it then. Ooh, I don't know if I finished these ones or not. Oh, I have. So this is a very rough version. I've added sound to text, so they can click on these buttons, and it should say, and they can click on these to listen to it. So that works in exactly the same way. So all I've done is added some text. So I'm going to have scarf, for example, and you can see there that is saved that default font that we set earlier. And I can double click on that text and I can go up to my sound, scarf, and add to selection. So now scarf should speak. Okay, so that's how we can create social stories in J2 Create. So we're going to talk about J2 stars now. So this is our pupil reward system. It allows you to award stars for behaviour. You can offer linked feedback to a star that's been awarded. And we also thought that maybe you could define the skills required with a potential link to IEP or PLP targets. So individual education plan or personal learning plan, depending on what you're using it as. J2 Stars is visible through the parent portal if you're using this. So let's have a look. Here we go. So J2 Stars is here. You've got all of your classes. So you open up your class and we can just award our pupils a point. So we've got 3 to choose from. So working hard, well done, Lottie. Now I can change these skills to reflect kind of what we're focusing on in class. So if I go to settings and I go to skills, I've only got 3 at the moment, so working hard, being kind, hands on knees. So I've got this option to add skill. So I might make this specific to something one of my students is working on. So for example, read my high words. And I can choose how many points that's for. So I'm going to say 1 point, or not 11 points, 1 point, and I can choose my icon that goes with that and click save. So that now allows me to award that as a point. So it also means if I click on Lottie and I go to view user, as a teacher, I can see when she's achieved certain targets. So if I know that she needs to read her high frequency words 3 times a week, if I'm awarding those stars linked to that, any teacher can look, so a TA can look, a teacher, a Senko can look and say, right, well, she's only read them 1 time this week, she needs to do it another 2 times this week. You've also got the option, we can select user, we can add feedback, got this option to leave comment. Okay, so we could say she struggled with the word, I don't know, the. That gives feedback to anybody that's involved, including parents, if you're using it in the parent portal. So now if we look at Lottie, go to view user, that will show that feedback there underneath that particular star. So that is an option for you as well, to start using J2 stars and link that to any PLP targets that you might have. Now, creating your own worksheets using J2 PDF. So J2 PDF allows you to add existing PDF worksheets as a background within a J2 Create file. It means that all those PDFs will be editable. You can add media, text, word lists as necessary. So all of the content that we've looked at in J2 Create, you can do that in J2 PDF. And you can save and share with students to complete. So I'm going to close down some of these tabs. There we go. Okay. So J2 PDF is here. Now you can, if it's already loaded into your My Files, you can click the Open PDF and choose a PDF. Or if you've got one saved, and I can't remember where I've saved this. Here we go, it's in my downloads. So I can drag this in from my hard drive onto this Dropbox here, let go, and that is going to add that PDF as a background. So it's an activity that I would have traditionally printed out, which with all the colour photographs is not ideal, but it means they can click anywhere on this worksheet and now start engaging with it. Now, certain students might need a bit of extra support, so I might want to put some audio instructions, for example, so I can record some sound. Can you look at the photographs and then complete the creative writing? And we can add that instruction there. There we go. You could add some instructions at the top. Maybe you want them to add their name at the top. Put that there. You can lock that in place as well so the students can't move it. So if I highlight it and then lock it, that now means they can't, it's part of that worksheet. You could give them examples here. You could add a word list, for example. So let's go for, I don't know, words or worksheet. So I don't know, noisy, bright, loud, quiet. You get the idea. And then click save. So that is now linked that to the bottom. So we've got our word list. You can add additional photographs down the side or additional text. And then when you're done, you click the save button. And we're going to have sights and sounds worksheet. And save that. So that is going to save. So each page is going to have to attach itself because this is a multi-page document. Should have picked a shorter document. Oh dear. Didn't realise it was quite so long. There we go. Okay. So this is a multi-page document. So you can see here we've got lots of content for them to look through. And when I'm happy with that, I can share that with my students. So I'm going to go to my share button here. And again, I can either share with individual students or with my class, and they can access that through the shared files area. So Lottie is here. So she would go, as we did earlier, through her shared files button. She'd tick the list files. There's that sights and sounds worksheet. She can click edit. I can see lots and lots of people. Lots of noise. And then she can click save, and that's going to save her copy into her My Files as a student. So you as a teacher will always be able to access that through the pupil files area. So if I just show you, if I go back to pupil files, if I go to class 1, that's Lottie's class. And if I open up Lottie, there's that sights and sounds worksheet, and I can see what she's written. So hopefully that'll be helpful for using those existing worksheets that you've already got. I always had a bank of them, and certainly photocopyable templates. So this is kind of a digital version of that. Right, last little bit. I'm going to talk to you about the library. So this is full of pre-made content, teacher-made content. We do have some SEND specific resources. So they're mostly with quite a focus on sort of emotional regulation and social skills, but these are just some examples. So this is making compliments. So again, this is a J2 create, but it's got a background, it's got that word list preset. So the children can click and they can start having a go and start writing. They've got a context. So a friend has a new jacket that you like, what could you say? So then they have to sort of create their own compliments. When you are in the library, so I'm just going to show you. So this is the library. It can be found off the launchpad. So that is the tile at the top there, unless you're in Wales. If you are in Wales, let me know and I can give you a workaround. But if you look for SCND, for example, you've got a variety to choose from. So maybe, for example, this daily feelings chart. So this, again, this is a J2E5 file, so the children can come in and show you how they're feeling that morning. If you like it, you need to share it with your students because they can only access content that's shared with them by a teacher. So if I want them to access this, I click on the share button and then I just make sure that that class is highlighted. So you can share for multiple classes and you can share for teaching classes as well. So there we go. So now if I go to Lottie's account, this one is slightly different. It's not through the shared files area. If it's shared through the library, they access it through the library. So if I click there, there's that daily feelings chart. So Lottie can have a look at that. She can say that she's happy today. She may need a bit of support with this bit. She needs to click edit and then save. And that's going to save her copy into her My File. So there are lots and lots of resources in there. Even the ones that aren't tagged with SEND may still be appropriate. So there's things like design your own Christmas jumper, all about me's. There's writing templates. There's initial sounds, matching games, internet safety rules, design games, art games, draggable resources. So there's lots and lots of activities ready for you to use with your students. Okay, so we are pretty much at the end of the session. If you have any questions, please feel free to add it into the chat. I have tried to keep an eye on it. It's looking very quiet. But these are our contact details. So if you need to email us, it's edteam@j2e.com. That comes through to Charlie, Mary and myself. We're on X and Facebook, so just2easy_com or just2easy. We have just started a Facebook group, which is proving to be very popular. We've got almost 500 teachers in there already within a week of launching it. So we're going to be sharing things like lesson ideas, lesson plans, action plans. So it's a bit more in-depth and structured than our Just2easy page. So please feel free to look for that. That is Just2easy Teachers Group on Facebook. And then our YouTube channel. So I'm just going to show you this. This is our YouTube channel, Just2easy TV. So all of our webinars are recorded and added here. So this one will be added into this webinars box. We're also doing live lesson recordings. So these are a great way of upskilling yourself as a teacher whilst also having the students engage. So the concept is I teach a class for you, so you play it at the front of your classroom and you and your students follow along. So there are some recorded versions there. So things like All About Me is very popular. Titanic database lesson. But also if you go to the live area here, these are all the upcoming ones we have. So I'm doing one every 2 weeks, geared at different lessons, different topics, different themes, different year groups, different tools. So we've got about 20 left for the rest of the academic year. So please feel free to join us for one of those. So that is the end of the session. I am more than happy to answer any questions. If you don't have any questions, then thank you ever so much for joining us and giving up your very precious time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and please feel free to get in touch should you have any more questions. Okay, so thank you.